I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? But there's one thing you don't know. Behind that iconic line, behind Clint Eastwood's cold stare and the .44 Magnum, lies a story more dangerous than fiction. Dirty Harry wasn't just a movie. It was a cultural earthquake that shook Hollywood, inspired real killers, terrified police departments, and nearly ended careers. This is the untold truth behind Dirty Harry, the movie that almost never happened, but changed cinema forever. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never see Inspector Callahan the same way again. Let's lock and load. 1. Hollywood's last choice. How Clint Eastwood landed the role. Before Clint Eastwood was Inspector Callahan, Hollywood had very different ideas. The role was originally written for Frank Sinatra. That's right, Old Blue Eyes was Warner Brothers' dream pick for Dirty Harry. But fate had other plans. When Sinatra injured his hand and couldn't hold the oversized .44 Magnum, the studio panicked. They turned to John Wayne, who said the film was too violent. Then to Steve McQueen, who demanded so many changes that it would have gutted the entire story. Even Paul Newman refused, calling it fascist filmmaking. Months passed. Desperation set in. Then someone at Warner Brothers remembered that spaghetti western guy, Clint Eastwood. It wasn't destiny. It was a last-ditch effort. But it worked. 2. A killer inspired by a killer. The Zodiac connection. 2 years before Dirty Harry began filming, San Francisco was under siege by the real-life Zodiac killer, sending cryptic messages to newspapers, randomly shooting victims, and toying with police. The Zodiac was a specter haunting the city. And that's where the Scorpio killer comes from. He wasn't fiction, he was an echo. The writers Harry and Rita Fink didn't invent horror, they adapted it. The Scorpio killer in the film was modeled almost exactly on the Zodiac. Even more disturbing, real SFPD Inspector Dave Toshi, who worked the Zodiac case, was a consultant on the movie. As he later confessed, it was thrilling and haunting, because somewhere out there, the real guy might have been watching too. And he was. 3. Near death on set. Eastwood's terrifying stunt gone wrong. Clint Eastwood wasn't just acting like a tough guy, he was living it. During the now famous rooftop chase scene, Eastwood insisted on doing his own stunts. The stunt team warned him the buildings were unstable, but Eastwood went ahead. Mid-jump, the landing gave way. He plummeted 12 feet, smashing through rotted wood and rusted metal before crashing onto a concrete floor. He was knocked out cold. When he came to, blood poured from a gash on his forehead, and his shoulder was dislocated. Did he go to the hospital? Nope. Harry wouldn't quit, Eastwood reportedly told director Don Siegel. Neither will I. That's not Hollywood blood in the final cut. That's real. 4. The studio versus the director, a near firing. Warner Brothers hated what they were seeing. Dailies were coming in too dark, too violent, too unmarketable. Studio head Ted Ashley flew to San Francisco to personally fire director Don Siegel. But Eastwood had final cut authority, and he wasn't having it. You fire him, you lose me. Ashley backed down. But the tension didn't. From that moment on, a Warner Brothers executive was stationed on set, monitoring every move Siegel made. Siegel later called it, making a movie with a gun to my head. 5. The line that changed movies, completely improvised. You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? One of the most quoted lines in cinematic history wasn't in the script. The original speech was longer and dull. Eastwood thought it dragged. He asked if he could try something different. What came next was pure lightning, improvised on the spot. The crew broke into applause. Even the actor playing the wounded bank robber broke character and smiled. That moment became the blueprint for every action hero one-liner that followed. 6. Police protests, officers walk off set. At first, San Francisco police cooperated with the production. They allowed access to real precincts, real procedures. But once they read the full script and saw Harry Callahan's brutal tactics, they were horrified. More than 20 SFPD officers quit the production. The police union released a statement condemning the film as a dangerous misrepresentation of proper police work. The crew had to replace real officers with actors and private security. Ironically, the controversy only added fuel to the fire and headlines. 7. The .44 Magnum crisis. When prop becomes problem. Before Dirty Harry, the .44 Magnum was a niche collector's gun. After the movie, it became a symbol. Sales skyrocketed. Smith & Wesson couldn't keep up. Gun stores had waiting lists over a year long. But worse, crimes involving the weapon spiked. The FBI documented dozens of cases where criminals explicitly cited Dirty Harry as their inspiration. A movie prop had become a real-world public safety threat. 8. 3 jumps. 3 men. 1 scene. Remember the heart-pounding bridge jump to stop the hijacked school bus? It wasn't one stunt. It was 3. 3 different stunt men. 3 separate high-risk jumps. From bridge to semi. From semi to moving bus. From the hood to the roof. No green screens. No CGI. One broke ribs. Another got a concussion. But every one of them landed it barely. 9. Harry Callahan was based on 3 real cops. Harry Callahan wasn't just a character. He was a cocktail of real SFPD legends. Dave Toschi brought method and street smarts. Bill Armstrong represented the bureaucratic conflict. Frank Sinatra added the edge, the rule-breaking instincts. Writers spent weeks riding with these inspectors. What they saw shocked them. Truth they learned was scarier than fiction. 10. The birth of the serial killer genre. Before Dirty Harry, Hollywood avoided serial killers. Too dark, too disturbing, too real. But the film's success changed everything. It was the spark that led to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Silence of the Lambs. What began as a cop thriller launched an entire cinematic genre. 11. Andrew Robinson, becoming a monster. Andrew Robinson's portrayal of the Scorpio killer in Dirty Harry wasn't just creepy. It was unervingly real. So real, in fact, that audiences couldn't separate the man from the monster. Robinson wasn't a known actor at the time, and that anonymity only intensified the illusion. People genuinely believed he was Scorpio, and some took it personally. After the film's release, Robinson received multiple death threats from viewers who thought he deserved the same fate as the killer he portrayed. But this wasn't an accident. Robinson immersed himself in darkness to create that character. He studied FBI behavioral profiles, pored over real-life case files of serial killers, and even worked with criminal psychologists to understand what made these individuals tick. He didn't want to play Scorpio like a cartoon villain. He wanted authenticity, down to the way Scorpio blinked, breathed, or twitched his fingers in moments of tension. He built the character from the inside out. Scorpio's erratic emotions, high-pitched voice, sudden bursts of rage, all of it was a carefully crafted psychological portrait. Even the way Scorpio chewed gum obsessively was intentional. It was a behavioral tick Robinson added to suggest nervous energy and sociopathic self-soothing. On set, he would often stay in character between takes, muttering to himself, avoiding eye contact, unsettling even the crew. Paid off, but it came at a cost. "I had to crawl inside the mind of a monster," Robinson later said. "Getting back out was harder than I expected." He suffered from recurring nightmares, insomnia, and a strange sense of emotional detachment for years after the film wrapped. He admitted he had trouble shedding the psychological skin of Scorpio. The performance haunted him, just as it haunted audiences. So convincing was his transformation that he struggled to find work afterward. Casting directors were reluctant to hire him for anything but villains. He was typecast, trapped by his own brilliance. Robinson didn't just act evil, he became it, and the shadow of that role followed him long after the lights went down and the cameras stopped rolling. 12. Dirty Harry versus the Constitution. One scene, where Harry extracts information without reading Miranda rights, sparked a nationwide legal debate. Law schools started using Dirty Harry to teach constitutional law. Scholars called it the Dirty Harry problem, when bending the rules might save lives. Some hailed it as honest, others called it dangerous. Either way, it changed how law, ethics, and justice were discussed in America. 13. Accidental style icon. Harry Callahan's rugged, no-nonsense wardrobe is now iconic. The brown leather jacket, crisp white shirt, dark slacks, and shoulder holster have become a go-to uniform for tough guy cops on screen. But here's the twist. None of it was designed by a Hollywood costume department. That signature look, it was Clint Eastwood's own. On the first day of shooting Dirty Harry, Eastwood walked onto set wearing exactly what he imagined Harry Callahan would wear, because he was Callahan. The leather jacket, straight from his personal wardrobe, already broken in from years of use. The plain white dress shirts, pulled from his own closet. Even the distinctive shoulder holster wasn't a prop. It was handpicked by Eastwood himself after researching how real San Francisco detectives carried their weapons. Director Don Siegel loved it. The look was unpretentious, grounded, and totally authentic, perfect for a character who walked the line between law and vigilantism. Eastwood's style reflected a blue-collar sensibility, practical, understated, but undeniably intimidating. What began as an improvised outfit became a defining visual of 1970s masculinity. Fashion magazines and men's style editors took note. Leather jackets saw a resurgence in popularity. The shoulder holster, once a purely functional accessory for law enforcement, suddenly became a cinematic symbol of rebellion and resolve. Interestingly, costume designers for the Dirty Harry sequels tried to replicate the magic, but never quite captured the effortless cool of Eastwood's original look. They would fuss over materials, colors, and cuts, while Eastwood stuck to what worked: real clothes for a real character. Decades later, his Dirty Harry wardrobe still influences how action heroes are dressed. You can see echoes of it in characters like John McClane, Die Hard, Martin Riggs, Lethal Weapon, and even modern anti-heroes like Jack Reacher. The legacy of that outfit isn't just in its style, it's in what it represented. A man who didn't care about looking flashy, only about getting the job done. In the end, Eastwood didn't just act the part, he wore it. Literally. 14. Real criminals coached the cast. To make the bank robbery scene authentic, casting director Tim Scudder hired real ex-convicts, former bank robbers turned consultants. They trained actors on how real heists go down. The fear, the mistakes, the desperation. One said, "Hollywood always gets it wrong. Real robbers are scared. They're making it up as they go." 15. Banned around the world. Dirty Harry was banned in the UK, West Germany, and heavily censored in Australia. Governments feared it glorified vigilantism, that it would inspire real violence. Ironically, the bans only fueled bootleg demand. The film became forbidden fruit and everyone wanted a taste. 16. The school bus scene, ripped from the headlines. The climactic hijacking wasn't fantasy. It was based on real events, mass kidnappings from the 1960s, and eerily mirrored the 1976 Chowchilla case where 26 kids and a bus driver were buried alive. Producers hired child psychologists to coach the young actors, making sure the fear was authentic, but never traumatizing. 17. The squint wasn't an act. Clint Eastwood's iconic squint wasn't acting. It was the result of eye damage from years of filming in harsh desert sun during his westerns. Director Siegel turned a medical issue into a signature character trait: suspicion, focus, rage. And it worked. 18. Slashed budget. Bigger impact. Midway through production, Warner Brothers cut the budget by 30%. The result? Creative brilliance. That famous foot chase. Originally planned as a car chase, budget forced them to go on foot, and it's now legendary. The finale at the quarry? A cheap location that turned into the perfect battleground. 19. Crime in SF dropped. In one of the most ironic turns in Hollywood history, Dirty Harry, a film that was widely criticized for glorifying violence, may have briefly reduced it. After the movie's explosive release in 1971, violent crime rates in San Francisco dipped noticeably. According to SFPD statistics, armed robberies and assaults declined for approximately 3 months, a phenomenon that baffled criminologists and delighted city officials. Why the sudden drop? Some experts believe the answer was psychological. The film didn't just entertain, it intimidated. Clint Eastwood's portrayal of Harry Callahan, calm, cold, and brutally effective, left a lasting impression. The message was clear: if you commit a crime in San Francisco, someone like Dirty Harry might be waiting around the corner, and he won't wait for backup. This cinematic version of swift, street-level justice may have scared off would-be criminals. Whether consciously or subconsciously, potential offenders saw the film and thought twice. The .44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, became more than a movie prop. It became a symbol of unpredictable consequences. Some police departments even leaned into the phenomenon. Informally, officers began referring to particularly tough or fearless colleagues as Dirty Harry types, Recruitment numbers for police academies ticked upward in several cities after the movie's release. Young men inspired by Eastwood's no-nonsense heroism saw law enforcement as a new form of action, both thrilling and noble. Of course, the effect didn't last forever. Within 6 months, crime statistics normalized, and real-world criminals stopped flinching at Hollywood shadows. But for a brief, surreal moment, a movie changed a city's pulse. Criminologist Dr. Evan Masters later wrote in a journal essay, "It's the only time I've seen a fictional character alter real-world criminal behavior, even temporarily." Dirty Harry didn't just shoot bad guys on screen. He reached through the projector and shook the psychology of the streets. Few films can claim that kind of power. Dirty Harry didn't just reflect reality. For a while, it rewrote it. 20. The sequel was written before the first film even released. Screenwriter John Milius believed in Dirty Harry so much, he started writing Magnum Force before the first film even hit theaters. That confidence paid off. The sequel went into production within 2 years, a lightning-fast turnaround in Hollywood. Here's the most chilling revelation of all. In 2007, retired Inspector Dave Toschi revealed that the real Zodiac killer likely attended Dirty Harry's San Francisco premiere. Security footage captured a man matching descriptions of the killer, sitting alone in the back row, wearing sunglasses indoors, and leaving the second the credits rolled. 3 days later, a new letter arrived at the San Francisco Chronicle, written in the Zodiac's unique cipher, mentioning scenes not included in any trailers or promotions. The killer saw his own crimes play out on screen, and no one noticed. Dirty Harry wasn't just a film. It was a message, a challenge, a mirror. It sparked debates, terrified governments, and inspired killers. It gave us one of the greatest anti-heroes in movie history and blurred the lines between law and justice. So the next time you watch Clint Eastwood stare down a criminal and ask, "Do you feel lucky?" ask yourself this: